Front-end web development, it's wild. It's a wildness. We're going to discuss how crazy it is. A lot of things there don't make sense. Okay, I'm a data scientist, recently working on some side projects, fun side projects. In order to bridge my AI model to the end users, I need to build out some interface, and the interface is front-end, is a website. So I need to build some front-end for the website. So I was learning front-end web development, and I found out there's so much weird things. So the first thing I realized is it's very different from, it's very inconvenient compared to app development. If you're building an app for the UI, there's actually a drag and drop interface, both Android and iOS. You can just drag and drop the components to the things, so you don't have to code those CSS style stuff or markup languages, which is very, very troublesome. You need to memorize a lot of things. You need to look up a lot of things on the internet. It's very inefficient. And so the AI like objects visualization things, you just drop. For example, if I want this button, you just say I want a circle button and put it on there. And how big it is, you can just adjust. You use the UI. It's very easy. So I don't really need to know those fancy details. Of course, if a developer want to do that, like they do a front end, like CSS thing, they can adjust that as well. But for most people, we don't really want to go through the lengthy process. So it's very easy. So build an Android app, iOS app, very easily within like a reasonable time frame. In contrary, in front end, the web, I surveyed a lot of tools to see if there's any like a UI drag and drop tools they can create a like Android iOS apps. There's basically no good ones. I'm not saying there are some, but most of those things is a bundle with the web publication. That means if you use the UI building tools, web builders, you need to publish in their server. So it's like totally bundle. It's very inconvenient because I want to host my own server. I don't want to use their backend, because if you use the backend and their servers, you are constrained. You're restricted. You cannot do too many things. And there are definitely some workaround, which is to export their front-end templates that you build using their drag and drop things. And then you use the front end in your own websites on your own server. But the problem is it's super troublesome because usually they involve a lot of JS framework. For example, they may use Vue.js. They may use a lot of like Tailwind front-end templates, like CSS framework. So JS framework, CSS framework, and a lot of like statics files. If you just port it to your own websites, that's when the nightmare starts, because you need to handle a lot of things. If you just port it, 90% of the things just won't work. Then you need to go and fix them one by one, and that's extremely time consuming as well. Because of the complexity. The root cause is the complexity of the front end. There's just too many layers there, and nobody really integrated that. Because everything's open source. There's no like one big company like you organize all things. So you need to, even you port that, you will be very troublesome for you. You just compare this to Android iOS. They are open source as well. Android is totally open source, iOS, but they have like iOS, some Swift, some development tools also, like not entirely open source, but part of them. But they all have the big giants like supporting that. I'm not sure it's good or bad, but at least in this aspect, it's good. You have Google and supporting Android Studio, which is an IDE for Android app development, and Google Apple for iOS app development. There's also an IDE for that, forgot the name, but it's super easy to do drag and drop. In the front end, you don't have the incentives for big companies to do that, and they only want to do that for their own website builders, and you can only do that if you use their servers to host. It's like a little bit like a stronger version of WordPress is actually one of them. You just use WordPress and publish on WordPress, or you can still host on your server, but you just port the entire WordPress package. You cannot just use those the part of the front end to build, and the other web framework, for example Django, to build your websites. You can do that, but it's just like I say, it's super troublesome. So it's extremely crazy. So I gave up using web builder, and I just think, oh, if I build a front end from scratch, that will be extremely time consuming. I need to learn everything, and it probably takes 6 months to learn. I just want to build some fun side projects, just prototype. And another option you can do is you can look at some templates, like pre-built front-end templates. Those usually takes around $20-$30. I actually bought one of them, but that's another nightmare because it's very hard to customize. They build a lot of pages, maybe 50 pages. They for a lot of different kind of use cases. But what I would say is you definitely need more. Unless your website is like very easy, it's just simple blog or simple profile, your own profile, resume. But what I want to build is more intense application that requires a lot of customization. And when I start to customize those templates, I just couldn't do it. So I end up also just use that for very basic website layout. And the core business, the core logic of the front end, I still code from scratch. So that's why it takes me much longer time to do that. There's just no easy way to do that compared to Enjoy iOS app. So that's my opinions on web front end. I actually was a web developer a few years ago, but I didn't like it, so I just switched back to data scientist. And now the front end development basically not much different from 5-6 years ago, I would say. The only difference is you have a lot more fancy frameworks. Then there's definitely increased efficiency, but they all have their problems. And the fundamental of building the front end, I just don't think there's too much difference. Still very troublesome. Alright, so that's my take on that. Do you agree with it? Do you think it makes sense? And let me know your opinions, your thoughts, and what you want to see in the future. Leave it in the comment section below. Other than that, don't forget to subscribe if you want to receive more of this kind of video. And I will see you next time.